In the gentle embrace of morning light, Jennifer Clark stood by her window, her silhouette framed against the soft glow of the Boston suburbs. With each sip of her coffee, she tried to wash away the lingering taste of life's trials, yet her eyes, weathered by hardship, still held a tender warmth. When a smile graced her lips, it was as if time itself paused to admire the youthful radiance that briefly returned. "Mom, I can't tie my tie," came the earnest plea from the living room. There her son Tyler, only 8 years old, stood with a red tie clumsily wrapped around his neck, his fingers fumbling in their innocence. Jennifer's heart swelled with love and a touch of melancholy as she approached him. "Yes, this can be tricky," she said, her voice a soothing balm. "But don't worry, Mom will help you." As she deftly fixed his tie, her mind wandered to the day ahead, her sister-in-law Carolyn's wedding, a place she would rather not be. Jennifer had been a waitress at the local Maple Diner for over a decade, serving coffee and kindness from dawn till dusk, her pockets filled with meager tips, and her spirit tested by the capricious nature of her regulars. Yet she never uttered a word of complaint, her dedication fueled by the love for her son. 3 years ago, her world had crumbled when she uncovered Michael's betrayal with his young secretary. Michael, once her partner, had soared in his career, his ambition outgrowing their shared life. "I want a divorce," he had declared, his words slicing through the silence like a cold knife. Jennifer, with a quiet dignity that spoke volumes, simply nodded, signed the papers, and retreated to her parents' home with little Tyler in tow. "Today is a special day, Tyler," she whispered, smoothing his collar. "It's your aunt's wedding, and we need to be extra polite." Her son, perceptive beyond his years, understood the undercurrents of their family dynamics, especially the chilly reception from Michael's side, particularly his former mother-in-law, Beverly and Caroline. With her gaze piercing through to his soul, Jennifer locked eyes with her son. "Tyler, my sweet boy, adult relationships are a tangled web woven with threads of complexity," she confessed, her voice tinged with a sorrow she tried to mask. "Your grandma Beverly and Aunt Caroline, they come from a world so different from ours, yet the bonds of blood remain unbroken." Even as these words left her lips, Jennifer's mind echoed with Caroline's biting remarks, each a small dart piercing her heart. Caroline, with her air of superiority, flaunted her prestigious university degree, now betrothed to James, a professor of academia. Today she was set to celebrate her opulent wedding at a luxury hotel. Beverly, her mother-in-law, was even more unforgiving. Her disdain for Jennifer's modest origins was palpable, her class-conscious nature never allowing her to forgive her son Michael for marrying beneath his station. After their divorce, her contempt only grew, seeping into her interactions with Tyler, treating him almost as a blemish on her family's honor. As Jennifer straightened Tyler's suit, she couldn't help but think of the wedding invitation, its gold lettering on thick premium paper, screaming pretense. She had considered declining, but Tyler's longing eyes had swayed her. "I want to see Dad," he had said, his voice a soft plea. For her son's sake, she decided to attend, unaware of how pivotal this day would become for them, for her former in-laws. "All right, Tyler, let's go," Jennifer said, inhaling deeply to steady her nerves. She smoothed her simple navy dress, choosing subtlety over spectacle, inadvertently enhancing her innate grace. Before they left their modest apartment, she placed her hands on Tyler's shoulders, her touch gentle but firm. "No matter what happens today, remember this: we are family," she whispered, her eyes moist with unshed tears. Tyler looked up, his nod resolute, his small hand slipping into hers as they stepped out of the taxi in front of the Grand Hotel. As Jennifer and Tyler ascended the opulent marble staircase of the Grand Harbor View Hotel in Boston, their hearts beat with a mix of excitement and trepidation. Passing beneath the grandeur of massive chandeliers, they spotted the wedding reception desk ahead. Mrs. Clark, the staff member at the desk, checked her list with a furrowed brow, her gaze darting between the document and their faces in confusion. "Please wait a moment," she murmured, summoning another colleague for a hushed consultation. Jennifer's anxiety spiked. She clutched Tyler's hand, her eyes scanning the room filled with opulent decor, pristine floral arrangements, and guests clinking glasses of fine champagne. A sense of alienation washed over her. "Do we truly belong in this world of extravagance?" she pondered silently. After a brief exchange, the staff member returned her smile somewhat strained. "I'll show you to your seats," she announced, guiding them through a spacious hall framed by floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the breathtaking expanse of Boston Bay. As they neared their designated places, Tyler's voice broke the tension. "Mom, what's this?" he asked, pointing to the place cards. While others bore names like Clark Family or Harris Family, Jennifer's cards starkly read Single Mother Waitress and Tyler's Single Mother's Child. The color drained from Jennifer's face, her impulse to flee clashing with the need to remain composed for Tyler's sake. "It's okay, Tyler, just a bad joke," she whispered, flipping the card over and seating herself, feigning calmness. Tyler's confusion was palpable, his young face a canvas of anger and embarrassment. The hall gradually filled with elegantly dressed women in shimmering gowns and men in sharp-tailored suits. Then at the entrance appeared Beverly, resplendent in a silver-gray dress, pearls adorning her neck and ears. "Oh, Jennifer, you came!" Beverly's voice carried a note of surprise, laced with a hint of disappointment. She barely acknowledged Tyler, swiftly turning to greet another guest. As the solemn tones of the pipe organ filled the air, the moment was set, the stage prepared for the unfolding drama of the evening. As the music swelled, a figure in white emerged at the far end of the aisle. James Dapper, in a white tuxedo, led the way with Michael, Jennifer's ex-husband, following close behind. 3 years had passed since Jennifer last saw him, and in that time he had blossomed into an even more formidable figure of success. The sight of him caused a knot to tighten in Jennifer's chest, a tangle of unresolved emotions stirring within her. Then the melody shifted, and there she was, Caroline, escorted by her beaming father. She floated down the aisle, enveloped in an exquisite wedding gown, her smile radiating pure joy. The guests sighed collectively, enchanted by her ethereal beauty. The ceremony unfolded with solemn grace. Vows were exchanged, rings were placed, and a kiss sealed their union. The bride and groom looked every bit the picture of perfection. Jennifer held her smile for Tyler's sake, though her heart was a storm of conflicting feelings. The reception burst into life with the clink of champagne flutes and the gentle murmur of Lord Duress being served. Tyler, with his glass of orange juice, watched the festivities with wide, curious eyes. "Mom, Dad is looking at us," he whispered, his voice a mix of excitement and caution. Indeed, Michael's gaze lingered in their direction, yet he made no move to approach. The room then filled with the sound of clinking glasses, a call for attention. Beverly, elegant and commanding, took to the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today to celebrate the union of my beloved daughter Caroline with her wonderful husband." Her speech was heartfelt, painting a vivid picture of the couple's bright future. But then her tone shifted, her eyes locking onto Jennifer with a glint of something less kind. "We have a special guest among us today, a former family member, Jennifer." All eyes turned to Jennifer, her cheeks flushing under the sudden scrutiny. "Since you're accustomed to serving, why don't you help with dinner today?" Beverly's suggestion, laced with a venomous delight, hung in the air. The room fell silent, the weight of the moment pressing down on Jennifer. Anger and humiliation surged through her, yet Tyler's presence beside her anchored her, preventing any outburst. As the tension mounted, a voice from the crowd began, "Beverly," even as a joke. But she silenced it with a dismissive wave of her hand. The air thickened with mockery, laughter ricocheting off the walls like bullets piercing the heart of the gathering. Yet amidst this cacophony, Beverly's eyes gleamed with a cold, steely resolve. The dinner server tonight was no mere second-hand spectacle. Her laughter was the herald of a storm brewing under the surface. As the laughter swelled, it pulled in more participants, even those who initially hesitated. Caroline, swept up in the tide, couldn't help but join in. Michael, though visibly uneasy, found a smile creeping onto his face, a smile that felt more like a grimace. Jennifer's heart sank. Tears threatened to spill over as her hands shook, and her throat tightened with the urge to flee, to vanish into thin air. Just as she was about to surrender to the impulse, a subtle movement caught her eye. Tyler, her little boy, her beacon of hope, quietly pushed back his chair and rose to his feet. The room, charged with cruel mirth, began to quieten at the sight of the young boy. Tyler's face was a mask of calm determination, far beyond his tender years. He made his way to the stage, his small steps echoing in the now hushed room. "Tyler," Jennifer whispered, her voice barely a breath, trying to reel him back. But he was already at the microphone, standing tall, despite his diminutive stature. "I have a present for the bride." He announced, his voice surprisingly steady for an 8-year-old. The words hung in the air, and the laughter died as quickly as it had risen. Caroline's smile faded, her face draining of color, as if confronted by a specter. James the groom glanced at his fiancée, confusion knitting his brows. Michael rose hastily, attempting to intervene. "Tyler, that's enough." But his words fell on deaf ears. The room was poised, waiting for Tyler's next utterance. Taking a deep, fortifying breath, Tyler adjusted the microphone with one hand, the other still in his pocket. His gaze swept over the adults, his eyes unyielding. "Please," he said, his voice small but resonant, "stop making fun of my mom." The plea, so simple yet profound, resonated through the venue, touching the hearts of everyone present, reminding them of the innocence and purity that should never be mocked. All eyes were glued on him, breaths held in a collective hush. Beverly's face lost its color, and Caroline remained as still as a statue. The groom, James, scanned the room in bewilderment. "Tyler, come here," Michael whispered to his son, his voice barely above a murmur, but the boy paid him no mind. "None of you know my mom." Tyler continued, his voice steady and clear, piercing the silence. "She wakes up at 5 a.m. every single morning just to make my lunch. She always checks my homework before I head off to school, and after a long day at work, she still finds the energy to read me bedtime stories." His words echoed through the venue, each one a testament to his mother's love. Jennifer, seated and stunned, felt tears tracing silent paths down her cheeks. She had no idea her son had been observing her so closely, witnessing her daily sacrifices. "My mom never stops smiling no matter how exhausted she is. So who has the right to hurt her?" His question hung in the air, stirring murmurs from the audience. Beverly, in a fluster, hurried over to Tyler. "Sweet boy, today is a special day," she cooed, trying to coax him. "I'll buy you ice cream later, so let's leave the adult talk for now, shall we?" But Tyler, with a quiet shake of his head, refused. "I overheard Aunt Caroline and my dad talking," he declared, and with that, the room fell into another icy silence. Caroline sprang up, her grip tightening on James's arm. "James, it's just a child's imagination. Get him out of here," she demanded, her voice laced with panic. Yet James, seeing the calm determination in Tyler's eyes and Caroline's distress, gently disentangled himself from her grasp and sat back down, his face a mask of confusion and concern. "3 days ago, when I went to deliver the RSVP to Aunt Caroline's house, Dad's car was parked there," Tyler recounted with the precision of a detective. "I was on my way to piano lessons, but I realized Mom had forgotten to mail an important letter, so I stopped by Aunt Caroline's apartment." Michael and Caroline's faces turned ashen. The door was slightly ajar, and I could hear them talking inside. At first I thought I'd just leave the letter and go, but when I heard my name called out, I paused, my heart skipping a beat as Beverly once again tried to interrupt. "What are you even saying?" she exclaimed, her voice laced with disbelief. "Today is supposed to be a day of celebration, not some child's fantasy." But as Tyler's words hung in the air, Beverly's protest faded into silence. From his pocket, the young boy produced a smartphone, his fingers trembling slightly. Jennifer, watching from the sidelines, was struck with confusion. When had her son acquired such a device? The memory clicked. It was a birthday gift from Michael. "I recorded it," Tyler announced, his voice steady despite the chaos it promised to unleash. A wave of gasps swept through the venue, a collective intake of breath that broke the silence. Michael, caught in the act, attempted to move forward, but the staff restrained him. Caroline, her complexion now ashen, stood as still as a marble figure, her eyes wide with fear. Tyler, with a gentle tap on his smartphone, brought the device to the microphone. First there was the faint rustle of movement, then a clear, unmistakably female voice cut through the murmurs. "Mike, I can't wait to see Jenny's face at the wedding. I'll label her single mother waitress and embarrass her in front of everyone. The plan is perfect. Beverly is in on it too. It's going to be the best wedding ever." A male voice followed Michael's, cautioning, "Be careful. What if people find out you're pregnant with my child? Our relationship will be exposed too." The venue erupted into chaos. Jennifer, her world spinning, covered her mouth with shaking hands. The recording continued, Caroline's laughter slicing through the din. "James doesn't know anything yet. If I tell him after we're married, it'll be too late. I've timed everything so he won't know it's our child." More revelations followed, each more shocking than the last. Since you divorced that woman, you've returned to your true self. We've always been special, Michael, his voice echoed. But be careful, don't tell anyone yet. With a final quiet gesture, Tyler stopped the recording and slipped the phone back into his pocket. The venue was enveloped in a heavy, oppressive silence as all eyes turned toward the groom James, his expression unreadable. The air in the room grew thick with tension as though a storm was brewing inside the once joyous venue. Tyler stood stock still, his face ashen, his family equally stunned. Caroline, tears streaming down her face, had begun to sob openly, while Michael's cheeks burned with a mixture of anger and deep shame. Beverly, unable to find words, collapsed into a chair, her shock palpable. My mom works so hard every day to raise me. Tyler's voice quivered slightly, yet his resolve shone through like a beacon in the fog. Aunt Caroline, please stop using my dad against me. And you, he turned to the groom. I'm sorry, but you deserve to know the truth. The room felt like it had turned into a glacial cave, the atmosphere chilling and oppressive. James rose slowly, his gaze piercing Caroline, a mix of fury and heartbreak swirling in his eyes. Is this true? His voice was a whisper, yet it carried the weight of 1,000 unspoken words. Caroline, hands covering her face, burst into violent sobs. No, Tyler is lying, it's just a child's fantasy. She cried out, her denial desperate, but her breakdown betrayed her. Beverly, recovering, stepped forward, her voice calm yet firm, attempting to quell the rising storm. Everyone, this is clearly a misunderstanding. It's the imagination of an excited child. Please let's not ruin this beautiful day with such nonsense. However, James's father stood, his voice stern, cutting through the murmurs. Has our family been deceived? He looked at his son. Let's go. This marriage needs reevaluation. As the groom's family began to rise, a collective movement of disbelief and disappointment, James gave Caroline one last lingering look. Was it true, Caroline? Tell me, he implored, his voice cracking with the weight of betrayal. But Caroline couldn't respond. Instead, Michael stood, his voice heavy, his presence commanding attention. Enough, he declared. I must tell the truth. The room held its breath, the silence deafening. Michael bowed his head, the confession like a thunderclap. It's true, I've been having a relationship with Caroline, and she is pregnant with my child. With those words, the venue erupted into chaos, the once vibrant colors of the celebration fading into a monochrome of shock and dismay. James's face, now devoid of all color, reflected the shattered dreams and the painful truth that had just been unveiled. As chaos erupted, James's mother rushed to her son's side, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and maternal instinct. James's father, his face a mask of fury, attempted to confront Michael, but the crowd restrained him, their arms forming a barrier of restraint. Tyler, the young boy with the microphone, set it down with a gentle thud, his eyes reflecting a turmoil far beyond his years. He walked over to his mother, Jennifer, his small hand reaching out to cover hers. I'm sorry, Mom, he whispered, his voice barely audible over the din. But I couldn't bear to see them hurt you. Jennifer, speechless, enveloped her son in a fierce embrace, pouring every ounce of her love into him, the surrounding tumult fading into a distant murmur. In that moment, her world narrowed to this courageous child, her beacon of light amidst the storm. Caroline's sobs tore through the air, a tempest of sorrow and accusation, as she began to blame Michael. Beverly, with a voice sharpened by anger, scolded her children, her words slicing through the noise. How could you do this? This is a family disgrace. Amidst the uproar, Jennifer, with a quiet dignity, took Tyler's hand, whispering, Let's go home. They stood their departure, a silent statement of resilience, moving towards the exit. A voice, trembling and uncertain, called out from behind, Wait, please! Turning, they faced James, the groom. His steps shaky, his face ashen, and his eyes red-rimmed. The man who was supposed to be the hero of the day now resembled a shattered figure from a tragic tale. Is it really true? He asked Tyler, his voice a mere breath shielded from the prying ears around them. Tyler, meeting his gaze with an unwavering stare, gave a slight nod. I'm not lying. The recording is real, he affirmed. James, his eyes closed, seemed to crumple under the weight of betrayal, his pain palpable. Jennifer, feeling a kinship of sorrow, watched as James, with a voice weakened by emotion, said, Your son is brave. To think that a small child would speak truth among adults. He placed a hand on Tyler's shoulder, a gesture of gratitude and acknowledgement. "Thank you," he murmured, his words a balm amidst the ongoing chaos from within the venue, where Caroline's cries and Beverly's admonishments continued to echo. Amidst the clamor of confusion, the shouts of guests, and the tumult of shattered dreams, Caroline emerged from the venue, her wedding gown in disarray, tears streaking through what once was flawless makeup. Desperation etched her features as she seized James's arm, her voice trembling with urgency. "That's a lie. It's a mere child's fancy, believe me." James, with a slow, deliberate motion, shook off her grip. Michael admitted it didn't. "He's the father, isn't he?" His voice was as cold as the winter wind cutting through the heart of a snowy night. "That's not true. He's just confused." Caroline's plea was a desperate whisper, her heart breaking with each word. "This is our wedding. James, 5 years of love. Don't destroy that over this." James, his face a mask of betrayal, shook his head, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've loved you for 5 years, but you betrayed me with your own brother. No less." He paused, struggling for breath, the weight of his world collapsing around him. "I need time to think." Then Michael appeared, his own attire as chaotic as the scene, his expression a portrait of turmoil. "Caroline, stop lying," he said, his voice laced with exhaustion. "It's all my responsibility. James, I apologize." But Beverly's anger now enveloped both her children, her voice sharp with condemnation. "You've tarnished our family's honor. How could you commit such a shameful act?" Her glare swept over Jennifer and Tyler. "And you too, exposing our shame so publicly." Jennifer, whose heart had been a silent witness to 3 years of humiliation, pain and scorn, stood straighter. Today marked the end of her silent endurance for her son's sake. Her voice, calm yet firm, cut through the chaos. "You should be the ones to feel shame. Your son had an inappropriate relationship with his sister, resulting in a child, and to conceal that you tried." With heavy hearts, they revealed the truth, a truth that left Beverly speechless, her usual poise shattered. Caroline, overcome with emotion, collapsed to the floor, tears streaming down her face as she pleaded, "James, please don't leave me." The air was thick with tension as the groom's father stepped forward, his hand firm on his son's shoulder. "Let's go, son," he murmured, his voice laced with a mix of resolve and sorrow. "We shouldn't associate with this family." "Wesserer," he turned to Jennifer and Tyler, his expression softening, and gave a slight bow of gratitude. "Thank you for telling us the truth." As James's family exited, the groom lingered, his feet heavy with the weight of his own heartbreak. "Is the baby really Michael's?" he finally managed to ask, his voice barely above a whisper. Caroline's response was nothing but the sound of her weeping, her silence speaking volumes. James, his eyes reflecting a world of pain, slowly slipped off his ring and placed it before her. "Goodbye, Caroline," he said, his words echoing like a final mournful note as he followed his family out. Michael, the father of the child, sat beside Caroline, his arm around her in a protective, comforting embrace. He glanced up at Jennifer, his eyes a storm of guilt and regret, but no words came. Beverly, once so full of haughty confidence, now seemed frail, muttering to herself in confusion. "What do I do? What happens now?" Her arrogance had vanished, leaving behind the shell of a woman who once commanded the room. Jennifer, taking Tyler's hand, whispered, "Let's go home. There's no reason for us to linger here." As they made their way out, James appeared once more, his face a mask of mixed emotions. He hesitated, then bowed deeply, his voice thick with gratitude and sorrow. "Your son is brave. Thank you for telling me the truth. I was blind." Jennifer offered a gentle smile, hoping for healing and new beginnings. Outside, the cool evening air wrapped around them as they stepped into a waiting taxi. Jennifer gave the driver their address, her voice soft. "I'm sorry, but it's a bit far." "Is that all right?" Jennifer inquired, her voice tinged with a trace of hope as she glanced at the driver. The driver, his eyes reflecting the soft glow of the streetlights, turned to look at the mother and son nestled in the back seat, his smile warm and reassuring. "No problem at all, ma'am," he replied. "Have a pleasant evening, both of you." As the car began to glide forward, Jennifer enveloped Tyler in a tight embrace. "Tyler, you are my hero," she whispered with heartfelt sincerity. Tyler, his face buried in the comforting sanctuary of his mother's embrace, murmured softly, "Did I do something wrong, Mom?" His voice was small, laden with the weight of a child's confusion. Jennifer's fingers gently combed through her son's hair as she shook her head, her heart swelling with a mix of pride and pain. "No, sweetheart, you spoke the truth with such bravery. That's never wrong." Yet beneath her comforting words, a storm of emotions raged. The betrayal by her ex-husband and his sister, the revelation of their child together, it all swirled in her mind like a tempest. She now understood the icy distance Michael had maintained post-divorce, his indifference towards Tyler. And then the gnawing anxiety, how would today's revelations reshape their future? Would Michael and his family retaliate? How would Tyler navigate his relationship with his father henceforth? But tonight she decided was not for worries. "Mom, I'm hungry," Tyler whispered, his voice breaking through her thoughts. Jennifer's laughter was like a brief escape from the heavy thoughts. She kissed his cheek tenderly. "Oh yes, we didn't get to eat at that place, did we? Let's grab some hamburgers on the way home and enjoy them in peace." The taxi continued its journey through the deepening night, mother and son leaning into each other, finding solace in their togetherness. Tonight's events had irrevocably altered their lives, but Jennifer felt a burgeoning hope that it was for the better. "Tyler," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "from now on, let's face life strongly together. You truly are a remarkable child." Tyler looked up, his eyes reflecting a newfound resolve. Today he had not just witnessed life's complexities. He had stepped into the role of the hero of his own story. On a crisp autumn afternoon, Jennifer stood before the mirror at Maple Diner, adjusting her crisp new uniform. A deputy manager badge sparkled on her chest, a symbol of her ascent. "Congratulations, Jenny." Her colleagues enveloped her in a shower of bouquets celebrating her well-earned promotion. Since that pivotal day, her life had taken a turn-down path she never imagined. The restaurant owner, recognizing her years of unwavering loyalty and diligence, had bestowed upon her the role of deputy manager. "I was impressed by your strength and patience." He had said, his words a balm to her spirit, restoring the confidence she had once feared lost. Meanwhile, whispers of the events at Caroline's wedding had spread like wildfire through the town. Surprisingly, many stood by Jennifer and Tyler, lauding their bravery. Caroline, unable to bear the shame, had fled to a distant city, now navigating the trials of single motherhood, a fate she once scorned when it befell Jennifer. Oh, how the tables had turned. Michael, on the other hand, had suffered a steep fall from grace, his job gone, his reputation in tatters. He reached out to Jennifer multiple times, pleading for a second chance, but her response was resolute. "We're over. I'm forging a new path in life," she declared, her voice firm yet tinged with sorrow. Beverly, once a pillar of social standing, now found herself ostracized by her own kin, her son and daughter's scandalous liaison having shattered her facade of superiority. In her isolation, she penned a letter of apology to Jennifer. After wrestling with her emotions, Jennifer replied with a message of cautious forgiveness. "I can let the past go, but forgiveness isn't the same as forgetting Mom." Tyler, returning home from school, proudly displayed a test paper adorned with an A+. Jennifer enveloped him in a warm embrace, her heart swelling with pride. Tyler, witnessing his mother's transformation, had become a beacon of justice among his peers. His small yet significant actions had not only reshaped his mother's life, but had also set him on a path of honor and respect. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the neighborhood, Jennifer was readying herself for her evening class at the local community college. Just a few weeks prior, a scholarship had reignited her dream of studying nutrition, a path she had abandoned years ago. With Tyler safely ensconced at Aunt Sarah's next door, she was free to absorb the lessons of her new academic life 3 nights a week. "Mom, could you become a restaurant owner one day?" Tyler's voice was filled with innocent curiosity. Jennifer's face lit up with a smile. "Yes, I can, my dear. I've just taken the first step." The shame of being a single mother had long faded, replaced by a profound pride in her journey. The bond she shared with her son had only deepened since the day he stood up for her at that wedding. "Imagine if Tyler hadn't spoken out that day. Would I still be blind to my own worth?" she mused. Life, it seemed, had a way of unfolding in the most unexpected manners. What was intended to be her moment of humiliation at the wedding had in fact opened the door to a new chapter for both her and Tyler. "Ready?" she asked, her voice tinged with anticipation for the evening ahead. They had made plans to watch Tyler's favorite movie after her class. Tyler's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm. Yes, Mom, we're the strongest team. Jennifer tenderly brushed her son's hair, their journey together not an ending, but a beautiful beginning. Thank you, dear viewers, for joining us on this heartfelt journey. Your support means the world to us. Please leave a comment below, share your thoughts, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories.